Hi, I'm astrologer and life coach Penny Dix. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Welcome back if you're a regular visitor here. And if this is your first visit, big welcome to you. And I'd love it if you'd subscribe. So today, I'm bringing you one of my special astrological reports. And this one in particular is about Saturn, Saturn's move into the sign of Pisces. This is long awaited. So the tide is turning. And in general, it's a time when we need to get real with our dreams because time waits for no one. Now, after I do my brief introduction and overview, I will be going through each of your individual zodiac signs to give you the heads up on which particular area of your life to expect this energy to be affecting you. And remember to check out not just your sun sign, but also your rising sign, also known as the ascendant. So let's see. Let's have a look. Yes, so who is Saturn? Saturn is the planet of boundaries. Saturn was the planet of limitations and was originally the planet we thought was the furthest out in our solar system. We didn't know a few hundred years ago that there were planets beyond Saturn. So hence its kind of imagery of being this kind of dweller on the threshold, this lord of time. And this is one of Saturn's qualities, that the rings round Saturn kind of lend energy to the fact that it is a planet about boundaries and containment. So what about Pisces? Because this is where Saturn is about to move into. Well, you couldn't have more opposite energy than the energy of Pisces, which has no boundaries, which is fluid, which flows, which speeds up, slows down, gets carried away, is mysterious, doesn't always see reality. So we have two very different and conflicting energies. It happens on March the 7th, 2023. Interestingly, it coincides with a full moon in Virgo on the same day. And I am doing a separate video, as usual, about the full moon in Virgo. So let's look at this energy first, because Pisces, being the 12th sign of the zodiac, shows us that once again, Saturn is completing its 29 approximate years journey around the zodiac. It spends approximately 3 years in each sign. And obviously within that, it has some retrograde phases, moves back, it moves forward. Sometimes it will dip its toes into the next sign, move back. So the symbolism of this particular journey can be found in our own inner reflections on what we've learnt in the last 29 years. So it's quite a good exercise to just look back, especially if you are in your middle years or senior years. What's unfolded for you in the last basically 30 years? How different are you? What's changed for you? Saturn, my big outer boy Saturn, rules the sign of Capricorn. And Saturn also co-rules the sign it's about to leave, Aquarius. It co-rules Aquarius with Uranus, that is currently in Taurus. So how will the unbounded energies of Pisces fare with Saturn's rather conservative and restrictive influence? let's look at the last time Saturn was in Pisces. So I want you to think back to between 1993 and 1996, May 1993 and April 1996. And there were some retrogrades during that phase. I, for one, remember exactly what happened to me in 1994. I had back surgery. And that's very interesting because Saturn is about the skeleton. It's about our spine. It's about our backbone. And I had Saturn conjunct my natal moon in Pisces. Now, I'm not suggesting that everyone who has a natal moon in Pisces and Saturn conjunct it is going to experience it in the way I did. But what we can find when our personal planets are touched by one of these big outer planets like Saturn is that, especially with Saturn, it produces something, it creates something that slows us down. So at the time in my life, just to give you the illustration, I was probably living much more in the external world and maybe not paying enough attention to my inner world and my intuition, which can be represented by Pisces. So Saturn decided that I needed to have some time for reflection. And of course, back surgery certainly gives you that. So I use that as an extreme example. So as I say, please don't think that something sort of terrible like that is going to happen, although it was brilliant actually, because my back got better. And my back has really basically been good ever since. The odd tweak, the odd twinge, but nothing too serious. So, as I say, Saturn was in Pisces between May 1993 and April 1996. Now, interestingly, at the time, there was a Senate committee looking into the effect of violent video games on young people. And apparently that was kind of triggered by, there was a breakaway hit called Mortal Kombat. This is not an area of life that I have much experience in. I don't really know much about these games, these computer games, and I think we had a lot of films at the time that were very quite dramatic, quite violent. And what happened when Saturn moved into Pisces was that there were restrictions on what we could view, for example. And there was a kind of moral code that emerged at this time. And it's more than likely that we will see restrictions brought in around, I think, addictive behaviors and substances this time round, because Pisces can be about anything that is basically chemical or plant-based, or, medicines. We've got this sort of approved medicines, and then the medicines that fly outside the radar zone, or the various drugs that there are on the market. And Saturn could really come in to clamp down on the drug industry. So Saturn is about morality. And Pisces can be very free. As I say, it can have quite an addictive nature. So there may be restrictions that we find coming in, more kind of regulations with things like gambling, online gambling. I live in a country, Malta, where iGaming is one of the biggest industries next to the tourist industry that Malta has here. So it's Saturn doesn't like anything that is outside of its control. So if you think back to what has perhaps changed for you in the last 29, 30 years, what with regard to your own inner self-development, because remember, Pisces is also about that inner psyche, that soul. It's the last sign of the zodiac. It's about a completion. What perhaps on your own psychological and psychic journey are you reaching a point of completion or conclusion before you begin again with the move of Saturn into Aries in 3 years' time? Do you need to change with regard to your own perhaps unboundaried weaknesses? Because Saturn can help us contain anything that is of an addictive nature. I think also Saturn in Pisces will help us contain the overwhelm of random thinking, of paranoia, because remember, Pisces can be about dreams and illusions. And I think it will bring some realism into the, sometimes, as I say, illusory energy of Pisces. Saturn can bring the clarity that perhaps we can't quite access. So how is this transit going to affect the planet? Well, as I've already mentioned, I think it's more than likely that the pharmaceutical industry will come under fire with rules and restrictions and regulations to cope with the exploitation and gross profits that are enjoyed by many of the big pharma companies. I also think this could include at this point, over the next 3 years, inquiries into the COVID epidemic. I know some of those inquiries are already started, but I think there will be inquiries and looking at the vaccine and people that have perhaps fared badly with the vaccine. And I think Saturn will bring in the clarity to that and an ability to look at the truth behind what was going on so that action is taken towards any abuse of circumstances that we had during the pandemic. The ongoing war in Ukraine, of course, I think that may move further may move further afield to include fighting around access to the Black Sea. And there could be strong opposition from countries that border the Black Sea. I think that there is the potential with Pisces energy for chemical agents to be used. And I think that Saturn's presence in Pisces means that anything, any slightest hint of chemical agents being used in warfare will be clamped down fiercely. So the ongoing drug problem in the world, I think we'll see further restrictions because I think Saturn is going to work constructively to set better boundaries and rules in dealing with the problem. I think we'll see more tough justice for traffickers and for dealers. I also think with migration in terms of, because I'm thinking of the sea crossings, when we get from North Africa into Europe and also from France into the UK, I think Saturn is really again going to move in and create some very firm boundaries, rules and laws. You know, this is to protect the people fleeing as much as anything and to, in a sense, overcome the terrible traffic in people which goes on. So how's this going to affect you personally, if you're still with me? And I will be getting on to your individual signs in a minute. So with it personally, I want you to, if you know your chart, look at where Saturn is natally in your chart. So I'm not saying, is it in Pisces? I'm just saying, look at where it is. If it's in a fixed sign, then this isn't going to affect you too much. Now, if it's in a mutable sign, which can be, because Pisces is mutable, so that's Gemini, Sagittarius, and Virgo, then you could be experiencing an aspect of Saturn to your natal Saturn. So also some of you might be experiencing your Saturn return. If you are 29, 59, or some very, very amazing people at 89. Think back, if this is the case, to what you experienced last time, if you're on your second Saturn return, because that can give you a good indicator as to how you may be affected this time, because it usually presents pretty big change in one's life, in one's direction. We can move, we can have a baby, become a grandparent, get a divorce, get married, move house. The real major things. Loss can come. So there are many manifestations of the significant and sometimes dramatic change that happen with the Saturn return. And the energy of it can last for a good kind of year before and year after the actual exact hit of Saturn on your natal Saturn. Saturn is about limitation. So look at where Pisces falls in your chart and see where you need to bring in more boundaries. Now, that'll become clearer when I go through the zodiac signs, because I will give you the area of your life where Saturn in Pisces is going to be residing. And remember that if Saturn is going to be conjunct, more importantly, your sun or your moon, it does kind of mean it's time to take stock, slow down, think about the next kind of phase of life. So and if we don't willingly make that kind of slow down and just reflect, then Saturn can step in and say, I need you to sit still for 6 weeks. Oh, here's a broken ankle, as has happened to me. Also, Saturn has been a very big player in my life, in my chart. I have really tried to make friends of it and have my little Saturn charm on my name tag. That's just in case I forget my name. So anyway, Saturn is about timing. So you have to think, where in your life do you need to slow down? And where do you need to reflect? Where do you need more discernment about maybe launching new ventures, starting new projects? Saturn also represents, most importantly, our shadow side. Carl Jung, the great psychoanalyst, said, ignore your shadow at your peril. Because if we don't know ourselves well and know our shadow and know the bits of us that can be destructive, hurtful, unkind, nasty, mean, because we've all got those bits, then Saturn, as in its shadow form, will bring that out and make sure that we look at it. Saturn is about growth. It wants us to grow up. It wants us to become the most kind of, the highest version of ourselves that we can possibly be. So think about maybe what realities you need to face with regard to your shadow self. Because Pisces, remember, can conveniently smokescreen our knowing. And yet that can also be the ultimate key to our knowing. So I've just got a few final thoughts before I move on to your individual signs. So when I looked at the event chart for when Saturn just first minute into Pisces, the chart's really interesting because Pluto, our planet of transformation, of power, of beginnings, of endings, and of course Pluto is also about to move sign. I'm doing a separate video on that, which will be out a little bit later in March. So Pluto is on the descendant of this chart. It's as if Pluto's dwelling on the threshold of a new era. It's highlighting it. It's saying, somehow I'm linked with this Saturn move. Saturn in this chart is in the 7th house of significant relationships. But I think in this instance, it's about commitment to our visions for the future, especially in relationships. While Pluto is bringing up the rear with his promise of transformation for the collective, the community at large, Aquarius. There's no doubt we are entering a time of significant change. And as with all major astrological shifts, it's best to go willingly rather than kicking and screaming. So, gosh, right. Well, let's move on to your individual sun signs. And remember, listen to your rising sign, also known as the ascendant too. So this is where you are going to have the presence of Saturn in your chart for the next 3 years, approximately. Aries. For you, it's in your 12th house. Now, this is interesting because, of course, Aries, you are the beginning of the zodiac. And so Pisces is where we've gone round and completed the cycle. And for you, because this is about that inner you, that deeper psychological part of yourself, I think Aries are going to be going through enormous change over the next 3 years. If you haven't grown up, you will do with this Saturn energy there, because it's preparing your inner self for when it moves into your sign in 3 years' time, when it will really affect your outer appearance. So work with it, Aries. If you need help, guidance, any form of kind of counseling to understand your shadow side, this 3 years is a good time to seek that help. Okay, let's move on to Taurus. So Taurus, this is in your 11th house. And this is about your hopes, your wishes, your dreams, projects you're working on or would like to work on. I think, Taurus, some of the dreams that you've had and perhaps not even told anyone about, ideas you've got for what you would like to unfold in your life, are going to start unfolding in a very deliberate and structured way. You'll get help. If it's a big venture, you will get help, Taurus. And that Uranus energy in your sign is giving you the opportunity to think outside the box and try something a bit different. So I do feel Saturn for you in Pisces, having just left your 10th house of your work and career, where it's really helped establish some routines and roots for you, is like, this is when you're ready to move up to that next level. So super energy. Now let's have a look at Gemini. So for you, Gemini, this is in the sector of your chart that is to do with your career, your passion, your life goal, your soul direction. And dream big. Because I think even though Saturn contracts, I think what Saturn is going to enable you to do is from small seeds that are sort of just crystallizing in your imagination at the moment, you can grow something really sort of worthwhile. And Saturn will give you the ability to put some kind of stability and structure into the ideas that you've got and into the thoughts that you've got. Cancer. So for you, Cancer, it's in your 9th house. And of course, this is the sector of your chart about, it can be about higher education. It can be about journeys of the mind and the soul within. It can also be journeys of the body and externally and travel. But I think Saturn in this position is slowing you down. Slowing you down and saying perhaps this is not the time to go gallivanting off around the world, that actually it's the inner world that you too need to be paying more attention to. I also think that with Saturn here, you may choose to learn more about a subject that you are very passionate about, and something that maybe Saturn will help you move from the 9th house into Aries, which will be your 10th house. I do feel that's quite a strong possibility. Now let's have a look at Leo. So Leo, for you, it's in the sector of your chart that's to do with, amongst other things, other people's money. This may be that we see you putting down roots with regard to pension plans, all those kind of things that we have to do to make sure we're all taken care of in our elderly years. And it's also can be about investments. And I think in general, it will see you perhaps deciding to save more, so that if your career has begun to become more lucrative, you'll be looking to put some of those well-earned, pennies, away safely. So there's quite a sort of a move with this to really do that. Also, Saturn in this part of your chart can bring commitment in certain relationships. So if there is someone in your life that you would like it to be a little bit more committed, then this can bring that about. Virgo. Well, of course, Virgo, Pisces for you is your opposite sign, the sign of significant relationships for you. So Saturn moving into this sector of your chart can be very beneficial. First of all, if you're single and you would like to not be single, opportunities can occur over the next 3 years for really committed relationships that stand the test of time. So that is very helpful energy. Anything that is not working or hasn't been for some time can end with Saturn's presence here. And if you're in a relationship that works, that is good, it can see you just feeling more stability in the relationship and really recognizing that you're both actually happy to be in it for the long term. Now let's look at Libra. So Libra, for you, this is very much about the part of your chart that's to do with your working routine, your day-to-day, all the day-to-day jobs you have to do. I think you will be diligently kind of getting a routine together that really works for you and feeling more in charge of it. I also think that with Saturn going through the 6th house, because it's the part of the chart and a sign that can bring health challenges, you need to just be mindful of anything that comes up, especially if it's skeletal or joints, anything like that. And you might find you have to get treatment for something or deal with something. Also, interestingly, Saturn can be the teeth and dentistry. So you might find you have to have some dental work at some point over the next 3 years with Saturn in this position. Now let's move on to Scorpio. Scorpio, it's in your 5th house of fun. That can't be bad. So we'll have some of that, shall we? So this is quite interesting, Scorpio, because I think it's about you putting down roots with a circle of friends that it feels a bit if you've flitted from one kind of setting to another. And this Saturn here is saying, look, be still, stay still. We've sorted out your living accommodation because obviously Saturn has been in your 4th house. And Saturn is now saying, make some commitment to creative projects that you want to be part of. Make a commitment to friends and keep your circle small and rich and positive. And also with Saturn in this part of the chart, if you're single and looking for romance, it would probably be someone that comes into your life that actually they get moved into the 7th house of a committed long-term relationship. So interesting energy for you, Scorpio. Sagittarius, this is in the part of your chart to do with your home life and your family. Some of you may move house or make changes within the home environment. Some of you may see, if you have children living at home, then one of them might be leaving to go to university or move into their own place or get married. It can be quite significant things like getting married, having a baby, these kind of big significant changes. And for you, it's around family and home life. So it's going to be here for 3 years. So don't expect something to happen every day. But also, it might be just giving you a heads up to say, slow down a bit. Enjoy your home. Enjoy the environment that you've created. And, you know, you've got Neptune here, which has been creating a kind of lovely, dreamy, kind of meditative energy for you at home. So stay at home more and enjoy it, which doesn't mean to say you can't go out and have fun, but just kind of enjoy the home that you've worked for. And now we move on to Capricorn. So Capricorn, this is in your 3rd house of communication. And of course, Saturn is your ruling planet. So you will be very comfortable with Saturn in this part of your chart. With it being Pisces, it's interesting because normally I think Capricorn, you communicate pretty straight and pretty clearly. But because Neptune has also been in this part of your chart for some time, sometimes it's perhaps made you less than clear in the way you communicate with others. And there may have been misunderstandings, misconceptions, and all sorts of things which just aren't clear. Saturn is going to change all that. Saturn is establishing those boundaries for you. It is just going to be so much clearer. You are going to come across more assertive, more directive, not in a bullying way or a bullish way, but in a firm, I know what I'm saying, this is the way it is, this is how I want it done. So much more assertive, Capricorn, with your ruling planet in this part of your chart. Aquarius. So for you, Aquarius, it's in the part of your chart to do with your finance. It can also be sometimes relationship. And of course, it's Pisces. And sometimes with Pisces in this part of your chart, You have an abundance of money because of all that water rushing in, and then it all rushes out and drains away. Saturn is going to give structure to your finances. It's really going to set some boundaries and some rules, and perhaps commitment in relationships where you need to deal with each other's kind of financial situation, where you need to help the other with setting their own budgets. But it's, I think you're gonna get a benefit from Saturn having left your sign. So you've been through 3 years of Saturn in your sign, slowing you down, pushing you to grow. And if you've done the work that Saturn has laid out for you, then Saturn moving into Pisces and your second house really creates the stability, the financial security that you want. So it's coming, Aquarius. And finally, we come to the star of the show. Well, of course, Pisces, my lovely oceans of emotions. Oh my goodness, how are you going to cope with Saturn in your sign? Well, you know what, Pisces? First of all, don't fear it. Welcome it, embrace it, say bring it on. Because I think you've had some very challenging energies over the last few months, few years to be quite honest. Neptune in your sign sometimes has been helpful in stimulating your intuitive side, but it also has not always helped you see clearly the way forward or the best way forward. Saturn is bringing you that clarity. Saturn is also bringing you boundaries, because Pisces, it is something that you have to so consciously think about, because it doesn't come naturally to you. You just want to be all things to all people all of the time. And Pisces, that exhausts you. You have to be all those things to yourself first, which of course you know. Then you can be some things for others. Saturn is going to really enable you. It's going to empower you. It's going to help you commit to the situations, the relationships, the circumstances in your life that serve you best. So Pisces, make the most and grow willingly with this wonderful Saturn energy in your sign. So there we go. Well, quite a long astrological look at Saturn's move into Pisces. Thank you for coming this far. And please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share, all those amazing things that so many of you do. And it's truly appreciated, truly. And thank you for being here. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.